As I mentioned at the beginning of the service when I was in the kitchen, today we're talking about health and the things that make for healthy bodies, and therefore the things that make for healthy lives. So I have here a bowl of fruit, and nothing is healthier than a bowl of fruit. Maybe a bowl of broccoli, but we have fruit today. And so I want to use this as a symbol for the qualities that actually make for healthy lives and healthy homes and healthy families. And interestingly, in the Bible, in a book called Galatians, it talks about the 9 qualities that go into building the best lives that we can, and they are referred to as the fruit of the Spirit. So what I'm going to do today is I want to talk about 7 of them, and I want to talk about each one of those 7, and then maybe share a little bit of a story as to what they mean. Now, to be totally honest with you, I'm getting a little tired of being behind this pulpit every week. So, you know what? Today's a good day to do something different and have an adventure. So I'm going to take my fruit, and I'm going to go all across Barrie, and maybe to some of the places that you recognize or that you've spent time with your family. And at each place, I'm going to share a different quality and a different story. So, 7 fruits, 7 stories, 7 locations. Are you ready to join me on this adventure? Now, I'm a little bit overdressed for going outside. That's much better. One more thing. It may be May the 10th, but it is cold and snowy out there in Barrie. Ready to go? Are you ready to come with me? Let's go have some fun. Well, we didn't get too far. We're having our first fruit of the Spirit right outside of the church. I'm outside the door of West Daniel Hall. And the first fruit of the Spirit is generosity. And part of the reason I wanted to start from here is because I don't know a bigger group of more generous people than the folks of Northwest. And I'm surrounded by the fruits of their generosity. Right now we're doing a campaign to get some things for our homeless people in Barrie, like sleeping bags and blankets and toothbrushes and the things that they will use, many of whom are outside at this time of year. But I also want to be here because the first story I want to tell is actually a legend about a church and where that church was built. So the church is one of the most famous in history. It was an ancient temple, and it was built while Solomon was the king of what is now Israel. And the legend behind it is really kind of interesting. And he was once asked, why did he choose to build the temple where he chose? And he told this story. Once upon a time, there were 2 brothers, and they lived about a mile apart. And both the brothers were farmers, and both were very successful. One of the brothers had a family. He had several children, and the other brother was all alone. Everything was going great until a famine hit the land, and if you're not sure what a famine is, it means that there was a lack of food. So the brothers decided they wanted to help each other. And the first brother said, here I am with all my kids, and I have lots of help to help on the farm. But my poor brother has nobody. So he decided that he was going to take a bag of grain that he had collected up from his farm and give it to his brother. Now he knew that his brother was a proud man and would probably not accept it. So he had a plan. He would get up in the middle of the night, he would take a bag of grain from his storehouse, take it to his brother's, and leave it there, and his brother would never know. Well, at the same time, his brother over here was thinking to himself, it's not fair. I'm all alone, my brother's got a family to feed, I should help him out. So he decided he was going to take a bag of grain from his storehouse, take it over to his brother, and give it to him. But he also knew his brother was a proud man and maybe wouldn't accept it. So he too came up with the idea he would take it at night and he would put it right in his brother's storehouse or his barn. So that first night, both brothers got up. They both grabbed a bag of grain, and then they brought it to the other brother. Of course, in the cover of night, they passed in the night, didn't see each other, put the bag of grain in the other's storehouse, and they went home. Next morning they got up and looked in their barn or their storehouse, and they had all their bags of grain. They couldn't believe it. It was like a great miracle. The next night they did exactly the same thing. They passed in the night, got up the next morning. It's a miracle. The third night, they got up, grabbed their bag of grain, but this time instead of passing each other, they banged right into each other in the middle of the field. Both fell over, both dropped the bags of grain. They got up and they peered into the night, and they realized that they'd run into the other brother. And they had realized at that moment what they had been doing the last 3 nights. And they were overcome with a sense of love and gratitude, and it said that they embraced. Solomon said at that exact place where those brothers embraced was where they broke ground for the temple, because he believed that a great temple should be a place of generosity and kindness and love, symbolized by those 2 brothers. And a great church, a great home, a great family has lots of generosity behind it. So that's my first fruit. Let's go to the next place and see what we can share there. The next fruit of the Spirit I want to talk about is joy. And I'm in a place in Barrie that has brought a lot of people joy over the years, and hopefully this year will bring people joy as well. It's Barrie Hill Farms. It's just behind me. As you can see, there's not a lot going on today, but people come here to pick strawberries and blueberries, and they get asparagus. And I'm sure a lot of you have been here with your families to take advantage of this great place in our city. But also, why I came here to talk about joy is I want to tell you a story about joy, and it's about a farm. It goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a little puppy who lived on a farm. And the puppy couldn't figure out what his job was on the farm. He figured everybody had some kind of job, but he didn't know what his was. So he decided he'd try and figure it out. So the first place the puppy went to was where the cows were gathered. And he said to the cows, "No, do you have a job on the farm?" And the cow said, "Moo, well, of course, little puppy, we have the most important job of all. We make milk. Then the farmer uses the milk to make cheese and butter. We feed the farmer's family. We have a very important role." "That's great," said the puppy. "Well, maybe I can help you out." "No," said the cows, "you're a little puppy. You can't help with making milk. Maybe go and find another reason that you might have for being here." So next the puppy went over to where the horses were gathered. And he said to the horses, "You look like you've got a job here. What's your job on the farm?" And the horse, big, strong-looking horse, said, "Well, we've got the most important job of all. We help the farmer in the field. We pull the plow and we carry things. We're the muscle of the farm. We make sure things get done." "Well," said the puppy, I'm pretty strong. I'd love to join you." Horse looked down and said, "Come on now, you're a little puppy. You can't do the work that we're doing. You need to go and find your job somewhere else." Well, the puppy kept going, and he came to where the sheep were gathered. And he said to the sheep, "Do you have a role on the farm?" "Bah, you bet we do," said the sheep. "We have woolly coats. The farmer shaves our coats and makes them into sweaters and jackets and all the clothes for the farmer's family and for the community around. We have a very important job. We clothe people." Puppy said, "Well, I'd like to be able to do that, but I look at my coat and your coat, and I know that that's not my role here as well." Poor puppy went away, and he found a little spot in the shade, and he lay down, kind of feeling badly about himself. Well, a little pig came by and sat down beside the puppy and said to the puppy, "What's wrong?" Puppy said, "I can't figure out my role here on the farm." The pig said, "Everybody's got a role. You'll figure it out." Just then there was a sound of a car that was coming down the driveway. It was the farmer coming in from the field. The car pulled up and the farmer got out, and he looked tired from his long day out in the field. As soon as the puppy saw the farmer, the puppy jumped up. It ran as fast as it could over to the farmer. And it jumped up at the farmer, and it licked the farmer's face, and it jumped into the farmer's arms, and the farmer grabbed the puppy, and the farmer's face just lit right up. And the farmer said, "Oh, little puppy, It doesn't matter how bad my day is. When you come and see me when I come home, it makes all the difference. You bring such a great gift to this farm. You bring us the gift of joy." And suddenly that puppy felt happy because it knew it had found its place on the farm. Maybe in your home, you're the person who brings joy. It's a very important gift in our life. Never underestimate the power to bring a smile or a sense of joy or happiness in somebody's life. If that's your gift to your family, make sure you embrace it and live it. My hands are cold from holding this basket, so I'm going to go to our next stop. Let's see what we can find. So just getting some chores done while I'm here. I think I owe my photographer lunch, so got to get some money out for that. May seem strange that I'm at a bank machine to talk about the next fruit of the Spirit, but I want to talk about kindness. So I'm going to pull up here for a second, and I'm going to tell you the story. So what does kindness have to do with banks? Well, when I think of a bank, I think of investments. You know, we put our money into banks in the hopes that they will invest them somewhere else and they will make more. And that's kind of how the banking system works. To me, that's also how kindness works. Kindness is about a willingness to invest in others to make greater gains in the end. There's a tale about kindness that actually comes from China. And it's about a landowner who was a king, we'll call him a king, who has 4 teenage daughters. And the landowner is getting older and decides that it's time for him to retire, and he has to choose one of his daughters who might be able to rule over the kingdom. And so he says to them that this is his plan, and he says, I'm going to go away for a year, I'm going to do some traveling, and then when I get back, one of you will be chosen to rule over this kingdom. Well, how are you going to decide, they ask. He said, well, I'm going to give you a little contest. And he reached into his pocket and he pulled out 4 tiny little pieces of rice. And he gave them each a piece of rice, and he said, depending on what you do with this rice will help me to decide who can rule the kingdom. And then he was gone. So the first daughter thinks, well, I'm going to really take care of this piece of rice and I'm going to make it look beautiful. And she got some gold strand and she tied the little piece of rice in a gold strand. Looked very pretty. Second daughter said, well, I want to make sure that nothing happens to this piece of rice. Obviously, it's very important. So she got a little box and she put the rice in the box. She locked the box and then held on to the key. The third daughter thought it was all kind of crazy. And she thought, well, it's a piece of rice. Millions of other pieces of rice just like this. So I'm just going to throw this one away, and when the time comes and Dad comes home, I'll just get another piece of rice. The fourth daughter thought about it long and hard and thought about what she might be able to do. A year later, the king comes home and he sees what his daughters have done. And his first daughter says, well, look what I did. She said, I kept this beautiful piece of rice. I kept this little gold strand around it. Doesn't it look pretty? Father says, yeah, you did a great job of taking care of that rice. Thank you. Second daughter says, well, I was really careful, Father. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose it. So I bought a little box and I locked the rice in the box and I kept the key. And here's the piece of rice. Father says, you did a great job of protecting the rice. The third daughter said, to be honest, Dad, I don't have the rice. I kind of thought it was a weird idea. So I just threw the rice away and I was going to get another one just like it. And I kind of forgot. And the dad sort of shook his head a little bit and said, okay. The fourth daughter said, Dad, come with me. They went in the castle. They climbed up the stairs. They went to the tallest part of the castle where they looked out of a window. And they looked down, and there were fields and fields of rice. Daughter said, you know, I took that piece of rice, and I decided that I was going to make more out of it. So I planted lots more rice as well. And now we have rice fields enough to feed our family and enough to feed the kingdom. Well, guess which of the 4 was given the job of running the kingdom? The father said to the fourth daughter, you have really shown great wisdom and leadership. To me, that's what kindness is. It investing. It's not keeping good feelings to ourselves. If we feel good about something or someone, it's taking time to tell that person. It's taking time to invest in others, because every time we do, that kindness grows. Somebody once said there's only 3 important qualities in the world. Number 1, be kind. Number 2, be kind. Number 3, be kind. It's always an investment. I better get out of here before this guy behind me finishes up with the bank machine, and then we'll keep going to the next fruit. See you in a bit. Well, we're down at the Barrie waterfront for the next fruit of the Spirit, which is gentleness. And you'll notice behind me is the Spirit Catcher, which is one of the iconic symbols of Barrie. You know you're in Barrie when you see the Spirit Catcher, and I'm sure that you and your family have spent time here, maybe on the beach or taking a walk. It's a beautiful part of our city. And I'll tell you why I'm here in a moment, but what does gentleness represent? It's a tricky fruit of the Spirit to think of. So rather than trying to define it, I want to tell you a little story or a fable. And it's a fable about sun, and it's sunny for now. And it's a story about wind. And the wind catcher is a perfect symbol of wind. And maybe some of those things on the Spirit Catcher will actually start to spin a little bit as I speak. I'm going to put this down because I need both my hands to tell the story. The story is an old Aesop fable. And once upon a time, the sun and the wind were arguing about who was the most powerful. And the wind said, well, obviously I'm the most powerful force on the earth. I mean, I have such strength. I mean, when I blow, I can knock things off tables. I can knock people off balance. I can cause storms to happen. I'm very, very powerful. Sun says, I'm not sure if you're the most powerful. I think I might be a little bit more powerful. Well, they couldn't figure it out, so finally they decide they're going to have a contest. So they look down and they notice a guy walking along the shore who was wearing a coat. And the sun says to the wind, okay, let's see who can get that coat off that guy. And the wind says, well, this is easy for me because I'm so strong. I'll get the coat off that guy just like that. So the winds start to blow. Just a little bit at first, a little breeze. Well, when the guy felt the breeze, much like right this second, he pulled his coat close around him. Well, the wind blew a little bit harder. And it is actually blowing harder. And again, the guy pulled his coat around him a little bit more. Now the wind really started to come across the water, and it blew almost like a hurricane force. And the guy dug his feet in and he pulled his coat around him as tight as he possibly could. Well, the wind was absolutely done. It was out of breath. Okay, said the wind, you're right, I can't get the jacket off that guy, but you're no stronger than me. How can you possibly get that jacket off the guy? Sun said, watch this. Sun came from out behind the clouds, started to warm up the whole area. Guy looked up, saw the beautiful sun shining down on him, and he very willingly took off his jacket because he had been warmed up. The sun had won the contest. To me, that's a great story of gentleness. Gentleness is that ability to do things calmly, quietly, that inspire people to do something in their life. Sometimes the opposite is the wind, and that's kind of anger and aggression, and we think the harder we blow, the more we're going to get results. But what it does, it causes people to go like this. But kindness, love, gentleness is what allows people to make the kind of decisions that they want to make that can inspire their living. So gentleness is a really important quality in our churches and in our homes. Okay, let's get out of this wind. I got to keep my jacket on. Okay, next place, let's go. Our next fruit of the Spirit is the fruit of love. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the most important fruit that we fill everything with, our homes and our churches and our hearts. It's the most powerful force in the world. And I'm speaking from outside one of the many seniors' homes that are in Barrie. And for those of you from this area, and if you're in Ontario, you know that right now with COVID-19, it's places like these that are being the hardest hit. And because they're filled with really our most vulnerable citizens. And if there's places that need our love and our attention right now, it's places like these. You know, I was struck yesterday, I was watching some of the celebrations for Victory in Europe Day and thinking about the soldiers that gave their all 75 years ago. And now many of those soldiers are in places just like this. And it makes us think that it's now our turn to be able to give back to them by keeping them as healthy and safe as we possibly can. There's a story in the Bible that Jesus told about a king who were telling his people that they were blessed. And he said to them, you know, when I was hungry, you gave me food. And when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I needed shelter, you gave me somewhere to live. And the people listening to them couldn't understand what that meant. And they said to him, but we never saw you hungry and gave you food. And we never saw you thirsty and gave you something to drink. We never saw that you needed clothing or that you needed shelter. And the king said, yeah, but what you did for the least of my people, you did for me. And I think it's a great time to think about who are the least among us now. And by least, I mean the most vulnerable and the most in need of love. And making sure that we're extending to that in every form of love we can is compassion and understanding and caring for those who most need our love right now. And in your home and in your family, you know, fill your places with that kind of love as well. Again, as the Bible tells us, for wherever love is, God is there also. Okay, let's go on to our next one. So I'm down here in one of my very favorite places in Barrie. Actually, it's a little place in Springwater. It's a bridge over a river. It's part of a trail. And hopefully you can see around me. I know it's hard to see everywhere, but if you had a chance to look around, oh, we're panning now, you get a chance to see just how beautiful it is. Often I'll come down here, it's part of a running trail I'm on, but I always stop on this bridge for a moment and look at the water or hear the birds or enjoy the colors of autumn. And the reason I do it is because it brings me a lot of peace, and that's the fruit of the Spirit I want to talk about, peace. You know, we all live hectic, active lives, and we all need to find those places where we can feel a little calmer and a little more peaceful, because when we feel peaceful within, we feel more peaceful in our homes and our workplaces. And taking time for those things is so very, very vital and important to building healthy families and healthy lives. So on that note, I want to tell you a little fable about a king. I know I've told a lot of stories about a king, but this is about a king who decided that he wanted to have painted a perfect picture of peace that he could hang on the wall of his palace. So he commissioned all the artists in the land to come up with a picture of peace. And they all did, and they submitted them to the king, and the king picked 3 finalists. 3 pictures that he thought he would choose from to decide what is the best picture of peace. And he decided that he would include the people of the kingdom to come and see what he chose. So he invited them all to the town square one day, and there displayed were the 3 pictures. And he showed the first one. It was a picture of a sunset. And the artist had captured the rays of light coming across the water. Absolutely beautiful. He captured all the oranges and the yellows. The second picture was a scene of a garden. And there were flowers, and there was a meadow, and there was even a family having a picnic in the meadow. The third picture was completely different. It was a harsh, dark, angry kind of picture. It was a thunderstorm in the background, but in the forefront there was a waterfall. And the water was crashing down onto these jagged rocks below. And again, lightning was in the sky, the rain was coming down, a very dark picture. So the king said, here are the 3 finalists. And he said to them, what would you pick? How many people would pick the sunset? Half the hands went up. Who would pick the garden? Half the hands went up. Who would pick the waterfall? No hands went up. The king said, the picture for peace that will hang in the palace is a picture of the waterfall. People couldn't understand. They had no clue as to why this would be a picture of peace. The king said, when you leave, I want you to file past it and take a really good look, and maybe it'll change your mind. And as they filed past it, a lot of people didn't notice it, But a few people who looked really carefully noticed that right behind the waterfall, cut into the very jagged rock, there was a crevice. And in the crevice there was a dove with its head tucked under its wing, and it was asleep. The king said, peace isn't about having everything perfect around you. It's finding within the midst of the imperfect that place where you can be calm and at rest. And whether it's in our homes, because sometimes our homes can get a little wild, whether it's in the world with everything we're going through, it's finding that place where we can be at peace. So think about, where is your place of peace? Maybe it's a place, maybe it's reading, maybe it's walking, but what allows you to feel calm in the midst of turmoil, of things going on around you? A very, very important fruit of the Spirit for our homes and for our lives. Let's keep going. The very last fruit of the Spirit that I want to share is goodness. And it's brought me here to a cemetery. Just a tiny little cemetery at the corner of Carson Road and Wilson Road. And it may seem a strange place to talk about goodness. First of all, a lot of people associate cemeteries with things that are maybe a little bit scary, but I don't know about you, but I've always found cemeteries to be very peaceful places, and places that you can go to remember, and also places that are rich in history. But let me share what it kind of means to me about goodness, because cemeteries most importantly remind us of just how valuable our life is and how valuable our time is that we have to share. And if you look here, I'm standing beside a gravestone. In the old days, they never existed, but when you would come to a cemetery to visit somebody, you would bring a rock as a sign of care and affection for that person, and you would leave that rock as a tribute. So sometimes you would find where people were buried large mounds of rocks, all symbolizing the people who came to pay them respect. From that tradition came the idea of a single stone, or a gravestone, or a tombstone. And if you look at it, you'll notice that there's the name of the person who passed away, Mrs. J. Green. Underneath is the day that she was born, the year, 1812. The day she passed away, 1896. But this is what's important, is the dash. This dash doesn't mean anything to you, and I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, or anything to me, or probably anything to you. But if you knew Mrs. Green, this dash means everything. Because that dash represents her life. All the things she did, the things she achieved, the milestones she lived through, the relationships that she had, all captured in that dash. A reminder of the value of a life. And I want to share with you not a story today, but a poem. Thank you for the burst of snow. It's called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love, and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. So be quick, less quick to anger, and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect, and more often wear a smile, remembering that the special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things that they say about how you lived your dash? It's a great little poem, and what it reminds me, I'm sure what it reminds you, is that life is valuable. And if there's one thing that this time we're going through has reinforced, it's that. And I know for me, it's making me think, moving forward, maybe things in life aren't what it's all about. But it really is about the adventures we have. It's about the things that we do. It's about the people that we meet. It's about the people that we care for. These are the things that really give our life value. And I think this time has helped us all to realize that our dash needs to be filled with the best things in life. And to me, that's what goodness is making sure that we are adding to our homes and our families and our lives as many experiences, adventures, and good things as we possibly can. That wraps up our Fruits of the Spirit. I'm getting out of the cold here, back to the church, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Well, phew, that was fun. So there you have it, folks, the 7 qualities that make for a healthy home and healthy families and healthy lives. Generosity, joy, kindness, gentleness, love, peace, and goodness. Now, as I said at the beginning, there are actually 9 that the Bible lists. The other 2 are important too. They are faithfulness and self-control. So I hope you enjoyed watching that as much as we enjoyed putting it together today. Thanks, everyone. Again, happy Mother's Day. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.